I will say it until I am blue in the face. The Kidnapping Swan power-up is the best power-up. Like, excuse me, it's the best one. Welcome back to another wonderful review of a wonderful Precure episode 36. This is, it's such a good episode. I think I've definitely hit my mark for most screenshots thus far in this show. But before we even get into the review, I just want to talk about, like, the lead up to this episode. As we left me off, I was a little stressed about, like, the direction this could go in. It's Precure. I'm not really used to this franchise doing anything with romance whatsoever. Even in the seasons where they actually do have some kind of romance, that also kind of goes nowhere. So seeing a confession this early in the series, that's it's just not at the finale, is wild, and where could it go? And oh my god, I had some reassurance of what was going to happen because I got the episode titles following this one, so I knew that this was going to end up being good. I also knew that we had a lot of, like, the really heavy hitters working on this specific episode, as well as Narita is in charge of the writing, and she has historically been, like, the only Precure writer that has actually done romance. Can't say that her other romance is really my favorite by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that she can pursue romance, and it's delicious. It's so good. There's so much about this episode that's so phenomenal. So without further ado, let's get into it. We start off with Komugi doing as I believe I had said last week, being like, Satoru, you love Iroha, I love Iroha, we all love Iroha, yippee! Meanwhile, Iroha.exe has stopped working. I also, like, what is really going to make the difference for this show compared to other shows, and I will scream this to the high heavens, I think is the supporting cast. I think the way that the cast handles everything that happens in this episode between Iroha and Satoru makes the difference on why I think other seasons and other series in general flop so hard for me personally in this department. But, like, we have people like Mayu, who actually takes the time to explain things to Komugi, even if it's in, like, a brief moment. Because at the end of the day, I feel like normally in a plotline like this, Komugi would have been a tremendous problem. Komugi would have been, like, the world's greatest frustration under the planet, because she would have probably been like, Iroha, I don't get it. Is Satoru trying to take you? Because, like, you're my owner, and I want to spend all the time with you, and he's taking time. Like, normally they would make that a problem. But honestly, there has been no negativity between Komugi and Satoru, and oh boy, I really appreciate they didn't go that route. Like, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that they did not go that route. There's so many scenes in this episode where they just do these beautiful, like, seeing you kind of moments. I have so many screenshots of it. Like, we're just going to take in the beautiful art that is this episode. And the impressive animation. Also, my boy Satoru finally got the chance to sit there and cleanly confess to her, despite it being usurped by Mei, who, thankfully, I mean, no shade to Mei, but he is not in this episode much, which is kind of for the better. He'll come back next episode, but for now, he takes a little sideline, as he should. But Iroha just... She processes it, but she doesn't process it at the top of the episode. Trying to, like, take the scene more seriously, because I feel like we got our comedic bit out, now we're going to, like, really address that. Feelings have been put on the table. And then Satoru does this typical, like, glasses Megane situation. But also, like, just to see, like, the embarrassment part of it, like, at least they don't go the tsundere direction with him, and they never did. Also appreciate that, where he, like, he's a little embarrassed. He's a little shy. A little guy. And then we have, of course, Iroha being mega embarrassed. And she's all sad, and she doesn't know how to handle her feelings. And just, like, kind of blindsided by the whole of it. And we see Mayu and Yuki, of course, try to go save, like, just to talk to her. I also love that Mayu is, like, running her hardest, and then Yuki's like, and then I'm here. I run. I'm good at running. And then even Komugi's like, hey, what are we doing? Are we running? Are we just having a little good time? Are we just doing a little bit? Like, what's going on, Miss Ma'am? So goofy. So goofy. We do have Mei desperately apologizing, and Nico-sama is surprisingly, like, supportive during this. She's really trying to, like, comfort him and everything. And honestly, it's just, I like that we actually get to see emotions, because I feel like with male characters, they typically try to hide the emotions to the 10th degree, and I like that Precure doesn't do that as much. At least, like, they might do it with some of their older characters, but I feel like in recent years, they've really tried to make sure every character has emotions and, like, is portrayed in their movements. So it's kind of like, it's nice to see Satoru be like, oh my god, I'm such a doofus for trying to do this. Like, oh my god. It's just, it's sweet. It's sweet to see the full range. As well as him, like, putting on a brave face. Like, he's trying his little hardest. Anyways, we ultimately decide to have Team Neanderthal take care of Team Wonderful during this period of time. And again, with the whole bit where Komugi would normally be a problem, like, it'd be a very easy way to write just Komugi being a frustrating, like, let's just not pay attention to this, and I don't understand it, da-da-da-da. I like that we have the Neanderthal team essentially pacify Komugi, and it makes sense, too, that, like, Yuki would be the one who, like, Yuki's not going to be the one to have that, like, romance conversation in the same way that Mayu is, and explain feelings and whatnot. Because Yuki will kind of hardball it more, and Mayu will do it a little bit softer. But it's hilarious to see Yuki be like, I'm really taking one for the team here. I'm really helping out Iroha here, but at what cost? And this is probably one of my favorite parts of this episode, which is Iroha confronting the feeling. As I have mentioned before, I think for me personally, I am very exhausted from so many series, especially in the Precure franchise, have these kind of like Genki happy protagonists who, when the question of romance is put on the table, they're like, I've never thought about it before. And then I will proceed to never think about it again. Drives me nuts. I mean, it must be in that department of, I can't relate, buddy. Like, I am indecisive about so many things, but when it comes to romance, it's a yes or a no. Like, there's not a lot of gray area going on there. I either do or I don't. So, the fact that, like, I get in reality that people can be like, I don't know how I feel. I've never really put a thought in it. This is fiction. This is fiction where some guy in a suit is in a building and making a financial decision to make characters indecisive and then just never get them together because that is the more lucrative decision to make. But at the end of the day, this is not Final Fantasy VII. You don't have to play with my heart. We don't have to be indecisive for money and to sell product. We can make a decision and the characters can get together. And thankfully, we actually have a character for the first time I think I've ever seen work through that. I feel like every other series that's been in this kind of department, where a character is like, I've never thought about love before, will sit there and be like, I'll never do it. This one, we actually have Iroha actually trying to work through the feeling. Actually trying to, like, sit on it. She doesn't go off and, like, let's go pick daisies while I don't think about having emotions. Like, she actually is trying to have counsel about it. Also, I just wanted to talk about the shadow arc here. Just the boarding for this episode is phenomenal. I don't think I've seen shadows done this well since Papaya's debut in Tropical Rouge. Also, phenomenal episode. But, like, this shadow that divides Iroha and Mayu is very beautiful and consistent, and they use this motif throughout the entirety of the episode. Like, even in the scene where Iroha is trying to desperately be like, what is it? You still see her covered in this shadow of just, like, kind of representing her confusion and her unsureness, while Mayu is, like, in the light and just has a bit more of an understanding and, like, this isn't a conflict for her. But also it shows you how disconnected the two are because it feels like Iroha just can't come over to the light. Even when we cut to this scene, we see, like, Iroha even more being, like, kind of claustrophobically smushed into this shadow of just not understanding. And the light seems to be getting bigger, and it feels like the distance between Iroha and Mayu is going even bigger as Mayu is having trouble trying to explain this in such a way that Iroha gets. Then we have this kind of cute little moment where Iroha's father comes in and kind of tries his best to, like, babble his way into making sense, which is relatively unhelpful. But you can also see that he's in the shadow of the light. Like, the shadow does not bisect the scene, like, completely perpendicularly. It's on this angle, which he is in, and then Iroha is not, which, again, just love the way they handle the visuals here. And then, of course, we have Iroha's mom who comes in, who seems to just, like, per usual, is very intuitively figured out what's going on. She and everyone else under the sun knows that Satoru has feelings for Iroha. And Iroha is still like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to do. And it's just nice to have the mom come in and speak on terms that make more sense. I think for what Iroha's father and Mayu are kind of incapable of communicating, I think obviously we have a mom who understands it a little bit better. Also, of course, we have good old-fashioned Mayu be like, yes, by all means, go ahead, tell us all about your romantic tale. While our dog and cat have finally worn themselves out outside. But just hearing that heartwarming of, like, there was just that moment where I knew he was the one, and, like, the connection between him and animals, as well as the mom and animals, ends up unifying it all together. Like, it's very lovely, and obviously parallels very strongly to Iroha and Satoru. And then, of course, we have Nico-sama, who is going to cheer up Satoru, and very consciously decided that, oh, you know what we shouldn't have? We probably shouldn't have Mei here. She literally says, I'm sorry about my Mei. Ma'am. But I also think more importantly, she doesn't try to talk down in the situation, which she has done before, and I think is something that her own character development has been, is that she doesn't sit there and, like, talk down to people and try to tell them what they feel. And instead, she just ends up being a translator for Daifuku, which honestly is what is needed in this scene. Especially since, once again, we still have yet to see Satoru's parents. I don't know where they are. It's very weird. Not sure what's up with that. But Daifuku basically cheers Satoru on and is glad that he's finally bit the bullet. And it's kind of sweet because he's also understandably like, it may not have gone well, but like, you know, you did it, buddy. I'm cheering you on. It's so cute. And it means a lot to Satoru, who's probably going through 1001 emotions right now. Iroha, on the other hand, is still trying to mull over things. Obviously, I think those talks were very important to her, but they're not enough to trigger a revelation quite yet. And then, of course, we have the day after, where Komugi does not care about anything that's going on. She doesn't understand it. She just learned how to do numbers, so, like, give the dog a break. Meanwhile, Iroha's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, I'm not ready yet. Being very nervous, trying to do it, and Satoru picking up what she's putting down, and is like, okay, let's just pretend it didn't happen. Like, you know, let's just be normal and continue on the way we have been. He puts on a brave front, and like, I know it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't mean it didn't hurt my feelings. And I like that in this moment, Iroha is able to be like, wait, I don't like this either. Instead of her just being like, yeah, let's just go back to being normal. Even she's not satisfied with the resolution. And then, of course, we cut away to our villains. One thing that's super interesting, and the reason why I had this specific screenshot, this is the leaf that fell at the end of the last episode, which was the leaf that kind of symbolized that the confession had occurred. So I think it's very interesting that Zakuro is holding it, and she's like, I'm bored and I don't understand, and la 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 la. And she's off to find something romantic. Which, sure is something in this episode. We also revisit this beautiful shadowing that we had previously seen in Mayu's backstory episode, where, like, we had the sad TM friendship situation go down for her. I'm glad to see this revisited. I'm glad to see the cool tones again. We've been seeing a lot of warm tones due to, like, the time of day that we were dealing with, but now that we're, like, midday, we get this nice, like, cool kind of overcast that just really adds to kind of the sadness before. Like, before with the warm tones, it was just, like, confusion and things were still kind of more lighthearted, but now it's switched to this cool. And just seeing the characters just kind of forlorn, like Satoru coming to terms with the fact that the answer looks like it's a no. And him just kind of, like, walking away being like, well, that's it. As well as, again, we see this revisiting of the shadow when he and Mayu get confronted. Because here they're both inside the same, like, level of shadowing. But when we just were back at this shot, you see that he's mostly covered in shadow. And only a little bit is touching kind of the light. But when we switch over to Mayu, you see that she's predominantly covered in light and only has, like, a little bit of shadow. As well as also just wanted to shout out that the fact that we have these background characters noticing what's going on and, like, being, like, having a little bit of participation, even if they don't have any voice lines for this episode. So I do like that they include the fact that other characters are here and other characters are somewhat aware of what's going on. Back to the shadowing. Just this idea that Mayu has a little bit more of that assuredness and she's still got that hope and she's still holding on to the light, whereas we see Satoru be more, like, resigned to giving up and just, like, falling back into the shadow. And it's just, oh, the boarding for this episode's so good. And speaking of just, like, framing a shot here, this is also phenomenal, in which Yuki confronts Iroha, and they use the bars inside the stable to, like, basically censor the two's expression. Because we have Iroha here getting confronted by Yuki, which I'm so glad that it's Yuki that does it here. I feel like everybody else has been very soft with Iroha in regards to her feelings, and I think what makes it like a 1-2 punch in order of actually tackling the romance in this show is having Yuki be like, girl, you are usually very definitive with how you feel about stuff, and you're very definitive about conflict, specifically. And she cites the time that there was an issue between Yuki and Mayu, and she's like, you did not hesitate telling me to talk to Mayu and really speak through my feelings and talk it out, even when I didn't necessarily know how I felt or how I wanted to convey it. So why are you hesitating with Satoru? And it's so great. It's so nice to see it. I also, again, usage of shadow here. When Yuki starts talking, and she's talking about how she hesitated herself, we see her face predominantly covered in shadow. But then she lifts her head and is predominantly covered in light. As she's like, now I know what I needed to do, and I've done it. So what about you? We switch to Iroha, who is completely eclipsed in shadow, with only a rim light on her. Which, again, such phenomenal... I know I'm getting so nerdy about how we're using shadows of all things, but, like, this is what I'm talking about. This is, like, how you visually use a scene to also convey the emotions that are happening. And then to take a nice 180, we go to the more goofy part of the episode where we're not doing shadows at all. And you see Sakura upset that everybody is in romance land, and she can't pursue her romance because her mans is sleeping. But then, again, back to this, we are once again in the turmoil of this, like, really nice shadow. You can see, again, that there's a lot more light on Yuki, whereas we just see Iroha eclipsed a little bit more in shadow. But we rush out to go to our battle, where we fight, I think it was a black kite. Never heard of a black kite before, but I looked it up, and it's in that same kind of family as falcons and hawks, so I was like, okay, cool. New animal unlocked. I'm more of a brown bird that is a black bird, but whatever. And then, of course, we have our shield break. It's important usually for these episodes that they KO the whole team in order to, like, really up the ante. So we immediately see Neanderthal go down here. Which also, they were a little fancy with them. Like, again, so much of this episode also is well animated, and I'll make sure to include little clips of that as well. This is one of those moments where, like, the animation's just really nice with these two actually, like, getting absolutely demolished. Friendly as well, gets hit pretty hard. They, like, also just have it be so quick and impactful. I personally love it in a fight scene when you really want to showcase how, like, difficult an enemy is by just having very, very quick and really high impact shots. Chef's kiss. Just chef's kiss in the animation department. Satoru also just kind of ends up... It's funny too, like, he doesn't actually get directly hit, but he gets hit by the impact of the blast. And it just, reminds us that he's human. And that, obviously, like, Wonderful and Friendly gets smacked. But he just kind of gets blown. And then here is a shot where we get to see the glasses fall off, which leads us into the next scene. He's sitting here like, no, we can't, like, let's not go down, we gotta stay strong, yada, yada, yada. But we see him without the glasses. And, oh my god. I think this is where, like, most of the fandom was like, Miss Sakura on so many levels. We're like, excuse? She's like, huh, you look cute without the glasses. And, like, I'm like, Miss Ma'am, were we not sitting here being infatuated with Gao? Have we lost our commitment? Like, I know we're a villain, but thought we had standards. And then, of course, it's like, it's like, it's not that this didn't happen before, because we also had this, technically speaking, happen when we first introduced Todame and Sakura, so not necessarily surprised to see this whole moment go. Also, I like the absolute terror we have here, which, again, reminder, kids, that this scene is terrifying. What is happening is not good. And girl picks him up like he is a sack of potatoes, and she's like, and you're mine now. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And Friendly was like, whoa, absolutely no, we're not kidnapping Satoru. And oh my god, there's just so many of these expressions where they're like, oh, holy. And just, oh man, the emotions start coming, dude. This whole sequence is so charged. They do this, like, kind of fractal effect here to just be like, whoa, wait, this is a bad time. Like, Satoru is getting kidnapped. That's not a good thing. And then, like, they went ham with Sakura. Like, they really upped her as a lunatic villain this episode. Like, she went from 0 to 100. It went to goofy antics to, like, oh my god, we've got a demon on our hands. It's nuts. And just seeing him desperately call out to Friendy is, this whole thing is so dramatic. And we have the reach. Oh god, this is like the 3rd or 4th time we've had one of these like reach scenes in this season, and it hurts every single time. Because we see the miss. And ooh, this eye shot. Oh, dude, emotional. So emotional right here. Where she's like, I see that face of determination. I'm not gonna give up in this moment of absolute hopelessness. And then we also, we have all these sequences of Satoru. We get to see, like, all these moments where we knew that Satoru was, like, so genuinely happy to be there for her and, like, be helping her out or just being with her. We go through each and every one of them. They're so sweet and cute, but the fact that Iroha is noticing them before when she just really kind of wasn't noticing them before. This means something to me. This means something to all of us. And then we see this absolutely fantastic scene, which, for me, nothing is more amazing than that moment when they do stuff outside of stock footage. But we can't do it a lot in a season. It really comes down to doing it in one moment or in, like, one episode. But to see her summon the friendly tact, and to see her draw the heart as she's falling, and then immediately get the power up, this whole scene was delicious. It's just beautiful animation. Mwah! It's so good. It's so good. Like, I will say it until I am blue in the face. The Kidnapping Swan power-up is the best power-up. Like, excuse me, it's the best one. Like, look at that. Look at that and tell me that's not superior to all the other ones. Girl just did a flip, put some wings on, and then shoots up into the sky. So good. So good. The action's phenomenal. And then our squad gets ready for backup. It's perfect. And, like, you know, I feel like we've had some moments where people feel like Friendy has kind of been forgotten. I feel like Friendy has so much in this show been a supportive role for everybody else's character development, but this is her time to shine, baby. She is locked in. This is the definition of being locked in. And just, we get another series of Satoru moments that she's like, I remember this moment and it meant something to me, and I'm like, oh, it's so cute. I love this show. I love this show, and I love what the show's doing. It's a good episode. And she's gonna get him back. She's gonna get him back. Also, I just wanted to put a side note, I really do love it when they have these, like, paw pad shields, because you see the squish in it, and it's a really nice animated, and I just wanted to put it out there because I really enjoyed it. But she goes for her man, Satoru, she gonna get him! And, like, even in the moment of peril, he's like, oh my god, she's cute. Even in the moment of peril, he's like, man, I love this girl so much, that little embarrassment, oh my god, Satoru. Also love that, like, Yami shoots out there and then, like, has the shield that they go from under the bird. Like, the choreography for this fight scene is nice as well. It's just, again, everything's so good about it. Then we have this, like, Sailor Moon Supers moment where she catches him while he's falling with the wings and everything. I loved it. This is good stuff right here. Like, we get a hug. Even if it's this kind of hug, we got a hug on the board. And then Wonderful catches them with the paw pad. And yay, the day is saved. All of it's worked out. Satoru gets his glasses back. Don't worry, guys. He may be rich, but he doesn't need to buy a new pair. And we're back to seeing him all smiley and happy. And the two of them are reunited. And we just have a sequence of blushies. I also like to point out that I appreciate that they, like, you can see them chipped away at the line art on their faces here, which is supposed to kind of simulate the rim of the light. I like that. I like what they're doing here with the sunset. It's also nice that, like, when you compare it to the last episode, they were having, like, they had the confession in a sunset scene on the bridge. But, like, we have the more powerful sunset confession here with the magical sparkly ocean behind us. Zakura's over it, which, Miss Ma'am, you were very non-committal to your mans here. You tried to kidnap a whole teenage boy. Like, get out of here. Yeah, go back to your man. But you never remember or whatever. I'm holding this against you, Miss Man. And then we have this moment that's very Star Twinkle movie, which also highly recommend watching that sequence because it's super pretty too. But, oh, we just have this, once again, not in the stock footage transformation that only really works when you do it like once. But it has that impact. because this is gorgeous. This is the way. I absolutely love it. I also like that kind of like bubbles away, kind of gives like this sea foam vibe to it, which really appreciated chef's kiss. Mwah. And it's just nice and serene and cute. And even Satoru's like, that was beautiful. Per usual, everything that Iroha does in his eyes is beautiful, but it's nice at that moment again. And then Kamugi's like, hey friends, we won. Let's go celebrate. And luckily, team backup dancers over here know what to do. They take her out. They're like, we're leaving Kamugi. Again, I think the reason why anything in this show/episode happened was really because of people like Yuki Mayu, even Miko-sama, the amazing supporting cast. They are why this happened. This is why this is not a confession that's going to be held off on for another 20 episodes. And even in this moment, Satoru is still like, yeah, you know, it is what it is. Everything, it's okay. You don't like me. But Iroha's like, no, that's not how it is. And we have this moment where she's still like in the shadow, but we see that like hard light of the like the rim light going in here. And then we see that with Satoru, and like we can see the shadows even in this sequence kind of begin to lighten, even though they're in like the harder shadow because of sunset. And then again, boom, we have Iroha's face predominantly covered in light. We no longer have it completely eclipsed by the shadows. As she's like, no, I do like you back. And again, we see him more in the light. Just, so well done, so well done. This beautiful eye sequence where the both of them see each other, and they just, the hair animation from the wind off the ocean is so nice. It's also a good excuse to have the wind blowing. And just being able to see each other with also a lot of bloom lighting here where everything's glowing. And her being able to finally say it. I love this pose. I think this is one of those poses that they use in like a Nightcore thumbnail, but it's so cute and adorable and very soft. And she gives a very Iroha confession, talking about like there's wonderful, but this is a special wonderful. So they like really kind of fitted into the like theming of the show, and again do it in a very Iroha way. I love it. And she's still got a little goofiness. We got a little like YMCA pose going on here, but it really is sweet, and it's really just such a warm moment. They drew the characters really pretty. What can I say? And I also love that we have the tinge of Satoru's embarrassment. Like, again, I love that Satoru is not a character who just, like, is calm, cool, and collected all the time. I think it's way more adorable that you have this moment of you just, like, see the actual build of embarrassment in him, where he's like, oh, that, like, shyness, and it's just good. I know I'm not being very articulate, but it's really good. And then, oh, that soft smile, because even here you can see, like, even in that shadow on, like, his jawline to his ear is, like, a brighter color. They're trying not to use a lot of dark shadows as we have finally entered the light. And we see that with Iroha, also just this light, bright smile. And you see, again, the rim light on her hair is lighter. No dark shadows any longer. And just a smile. Ending with this final shot where they have successfully gotten together against all odds. It's been such a good ride. I cannot just, one of the best confession sequences I've seen, period. Much less, like, for Precure. Like, again, Precure does not do romance. And to see it after, like, 20 years of kind of wanting there to be at least one romance in the franchise, this is finally delivered. I feel like this is a huge milestone for anybody who's been into it. Because even if you, like, I'm not gonna lie, even if you were somebody who was into, like, Nozomi and Coco, that was also just, like, besides it just not being a great relationship, circumstantially, it being a relationship period was terrible. The two of them, like, constantly were fighting more times than they were ever actually, like, happy to be around each other. It was just all around terrible. It's nice to have this where these two characters genuinely were always nice to each other, always seemed to get along, always had each other's best interest, and to see a full, well-rounded confession, it's so satisfying. It's everything we wanted. My only trepidation with this is that I do hope that for the sake of any other romance in the future, which this is going to be a future problem, like a distant future, this is not going to be an immediate problem, I hope. I hope that Precure doesn't fall down a rabbit hole of doing a lot of romances moving forward. And I say this because Precure has made a habit thus far of not having any romance because they really want to prioritize friendship. Precure has always been a friendship first series and a romance second, which is not usually, that's like abnormal normally for magical girl series. But since Precure has been so long running, it's become the forefront. But back in the day, even like something like Sailor Moon spent a lot of the runtime talking about how much the girls were in love with somebody, or they wanted to pursue romance, or they wanted to be somebody's wife. Like, romance was super prioritized in that, almost equally, or if not more so, than the friendship in the show. So Precure really wanted to make a stance against that and wanted to prioritize, like, make sure that friendship was the #1 concern for it. And my fear is that one of the reasons why they might have not written romance is that they felt like if they did try to write romance, both in a fandom sense and in a writer's sense, they would end up having the romance be something that eclipses the entirety of the series, which I don't disagree with. I do think whenever a show throws any kind of romance in there, people care significantly more for the romance once it's there and once it's going than they do about whatever the actual conflict is of the show. And so it's a very dangerous balance of, like, kind of like when you put a little bit of salt in dessert to make it taste a little bit better and to have everything kind of fit chemically there. But if you put too much salt in a dessert, it tastes like salt. Like, it's a pinch of salt that needs to be there to make it work. And you don't want it to be overpowering. And I'm worried that for future seasons of Precure, that they might see, oh, people really enjoyed the romance in this. What if we keep doing romance and it kind of, like, snowballs? I hope they don't do that, and I think they're smart enough not to, because again, they've made a lot of effort to really not do romance. But we'll see. I'm also hoping that they don't do anything like randomly give Mayu a love interest by the end of the series. Don't think they will. Don't think that will be an issue anytime soon, if it's going to be an issue. But I just wanted to put that out there, that the reason why this worked, and the same reason that, like, the non-stock footage, like Friendly Tact and Detransformation worked, is because it doesn't happen frequently. It is when they give it to us in little tiny spoonfuls that it really has the impact that it does. So I like where this is going. I'm assuming that the romance now will probably move. Like, we'll have a big romantic episode next episode, and then I would assume that the romance is going to kind of turn into the same level of interaction that we see when Satoru had emotions towards Iroha and had his blush scenes throughout the show, where it's like, oh, it's a little romantic moment. I assume that's what the relationship is going to be, is that they'll have, like, mini romantic moments with each other, or like, the two of them will be embarrassed in the background of some kind of episode, but predominantly each episode will have whatever the plot is. And we do have 3 whole other main characters who have issues and have stuff that can be the conflict of the episode. So we'll see what these uncharted waters are for the future of wonderful Precure. And until next time, I'll see you guys then. Bye-bye!